I want you to picture a crime scene with me. A scene that, well, it just shouldn't exist.
Okay.
We're in southern Poland, winter of 1933. There's this sprawling, absolutely freezing castle.
Classic setting.
Right. And in an upstairs bedroom, a young man, Anton Holberg, is found dead. Now, the cause of death it's immediately obvious. There's this deep, angry red mark circling his throat. He's been strangled.
A ligature mark.
Exactly. But here's the forensic nightmare. There's no rope, no wire, no string. The room is completely empty of any kind of weapon.
In the door.
The door wasn't just closed, it was locked from the inside. The key was still in the lock.
It's the ultimate locked room mystery. But, usually those stories have a trick, right? A secret panel or a spring-loaded device.
Right.
The problem with the Anton Holberg case is that the impossible part isn't just the room. It's the wound itself. We're talking about a physical injury, a lethal one, caused by a weapon that seemed to have just evaporated.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. The Holberg case, it sits right on that jagged edge between a detective novel and, well, a ghost story. The local legend says he was killed by a spirit they call the Hooded Monk. But we're gonna push past the campfire story part of this and treat it like a proper cold case. Our mission is to figure out, was this a supernatural hit? Or is the human mind powerful enough to create its own murder weapon?
It really boils down to a question of biology versus physics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To solve this, we have to look at the specifics of his death. But I also want to bring in two other cases from the archives.
Okay.
The Logis farm haunting in Ohio and the Blackwood tragedy.
Right.
We need to cross-reference them to understand what's physically possible when we're talking about the paranormal.
So let's set that scene first. The Holberg estate. It's this ancient drafty place, but the vibe that night wasn't spooky at all. It was a party.
Yeah.
Anton Holberg's a young nobleman. He has his friends over, and they are drinking heavily.
And the alcohol is a key variable here. This is not some calm, rational seance. It's a rowdy, high-energy environment. Alcohol lowers your inhibitions, but it also, it cranks up your emotions.
Totally. And Anton's the center of attention. He's pretty wasted, trying to play host, but he's just stumbling around.
Yeah.
He spills a tray of drinks everywhere. And instead of apologizing, he tries to play it off as a joke, serving his friends empty cups. Everyone's laughing at him, kind of mocking him. And then, right in the middle of all this laughter-dead silence, a massive creak comes from the ceiling right above them.
And that's the moment the whole dynamic shifts. Anton tries to cover his mistake by blaming the noise on the castle's ghost. He just says, that's just the monk.
Most of his friends, they know the story. It's this old tale Anton tells. But there's a new guy there who isn't in on the joke. He asks, "What monk?"
Oh boy.
And Anton, loving the spotlight, he explains that the room right above them is haunted by this evil hooded monk. He even admits that he's never ever stepped foot inside that room himself. He's too scared.
Which is like throwing blood in the water for a group of drunk young men. They smell weakness.
Exactly. The new guy calls him on it. He basically says, "You're a nobleman in your own house, and you're scared of a fairy tale." The laughter turns into jeering. The peer pressure it skyrockets.
They dare him.
They dare him. Go spend the night in the room. Prove you're not a coward.
Psychologically, Anton is completely trapped. He can't back down without total humiliation. So he accepts a challenge that he is genuinely terrified of. And this is critical. He isn't going up there as a skeptic. He's going up there as a true believer, just hiding it behind bravado.
The whole group walks him upstairs. It's like this mock funeral procession. There are witnesses to all of this. He has the only key. He unlocks the door, and his friend said he was literally shaking as he pushed it open.
And the room itself, let's be clear, it's not full of spooky artifacts. It's just dusty, old furniture under sheets, cobwebs. It's eerie, sure, but it's just a vacant bedroom.
Anton steps inside. He closes the door, and his friends, who are standing right there in the hall, they hear that distinct click, the sound of the lock turning.
That's the lock-in, auditory confirmation. He engages the lock from the inside. He's alone. The friends get bored. They go back to bed. The trap is set.
Now, fast forward a few hours. The castle is dead quiet, until this scream just rips through the silence.
A blood-curdling scream, they say.
Yeah. The friends wake up, they realize where it came from, and they run back to the door.
They're pounding on it, shouting his name. No answer.
Yep.
And the door is still locked, solid. They can't even use a key because Anton's key is still in the hole on the other side.
So they have to break it down. They literally smash the door off its hinges. They burst in, dust flying everywhere, and they find Anton lying on the bed, face up, dead.
Okay, now let's get into the investigation that followed. Because the first thing a skeptic says is, oh, someone climbed in the window. But this, the third floor. The windows were latched from the inside, covered in decades of grime, untouched.
And the chimney.
Too narrow for a person. And it was blocked by an old bird's nest that was completely intact.
So no entry, no exit. But the body tells this incredibly violent story. That red mark. The autopsy called it a distinct, thin ligature abrasion. It looked exactly like he'd been garroted with a wire or a thin cord.
And that's where the physics just completely breaks down. If you strangle someone, you need a tool, you need leverage. His friends searched that room from top to bottom. They tore up the mattress, the floorboards, checked his pockets. There was nothing capable of making that mark.
And this is where the believers go, because the legend of the hooded monk has a very specific detail. The story goes that the monk kills by strangling victims with a spectral rope.
It matches the lore perfectly.
So doesn't that just close the book? You've got a locked room, an impossible death, and an injury that perfectly matches the local ghost story. To me, that sounds like the monk did it.
It's a compelling narrative, I'll give you that. But we have to look at the alternative. If we rule out a ghost with a physical rope, and we rule out an intruder, we're left with the victim himself.
Right.
Could Anton have done this to himself?
Suicide. But there was no rope.
Not suicide. I'm talking about the power of the mind to literally destroy the body. We have to talk about something called voodoo death.
Okay, that sounds like we're back to magic. What is voodoo death?
It's a legitimate medical term, coined by Walter Cannon back in 1942. He studied cases where people were cursed by a shaman, and they just died of fright. It's not magic, it's physiology. He called it a vagal storm.
Break that down for me.
When you are in a state of absolute primal terror, like Anton must have been, your body floods with adrenaline. It's fight or flight. But if you feel trapped, if you truly believe there is no escape, that whole system can misfire. It can cause a massive rapid drop in blood pressure and your heart. It just stops. It's a psychogenic death.
Yeah.
The mind literally convinces the heart to give up.
Okay, I can almost buy that. Fear stopped his heart. He saw a shadow, panicked, and went into cardiac arrest. That explains the dead body. But it does not explain the red line around his neck. A heart attack doesn't leave a bruise that looks like a wire.
That is the sticking point, I know.
It's a pretty big sticking point. You can't just think a bruise onto your own neck.
Well, actually, there is some evidence that you might be able to. It's extremely rare, but we need to look at a condition called psychogenic purpura.
Psychogenic purpura.
Also known as Gardner-Diamond syndrome. It's a rare autoimmune response where extreme emotional stress causes your capillaries to spontaneously burst, creating bruises, sometimes even bleeding under the skin, with no physical trauma at all.
So you're saying he stressed himself out so hard that his neck capillaries just exploded in a perfect circle?
Or there's dermographism, skin writing, where the skin gets so hypersensitive. We see this sometimes in cases of stigmata, where religious believers manifest wounds because they focus on them so intensely. If Anton was obsessing over the monk's rope, if he felt that phantom sensation of choking, he might have clawed at his own neck, or his body might have just reacted.
Hang on, that feels like a massive stretch. I know the mind is powerful, but creating a specific thin ligature mark that fooled a coroner, that feels like we're twisting science just to avoid admitting something really weird happened here.
It is a stretch, I admit it. But is it a bigger stretch than a ghost holding a physical rope? We're choosing between an extreme biological anomaly and a complete suspension of the laws of physics.
Well, let's talk about those laws of physics, because for a ghost to strangle someone, it needs to exert force, it needs friction.
Just need to have the mass.
That's right. Do we have any evidence from other cases that ghosts can actually do that?
This is exactly why we need to look at the Carl Logis case, Ohio, 1921. This gives us a baseline for what a physical haunting looks like. Carl buys a farm and, things start getting weird.
Right, and this wasn't just a feeling. Carl was a pragmatic guy, but he starts seeing a white silhouette near his water well every single night at 9:30 p.m.
And for a long time, it's just visual, a repeating loop. But then the physical environment starts to react. The farm animals, his horses and cattle, they refuse to drink water from that well. They're dehydrated, desperate, but they will not touch it.
That is a physical interaction. The water changed, or the animal sensed something physically there. So Carl drains the well, a lot of physical labor, and he finds a body.
The body of a missing farmhand, Henry Leibenstick. And get this, Henry had been murdered, and his pocket watch had stopped at 9:35 p.m.
So the ghost appeared at the time of the murder and basically led Carl to the body.
Exactly. But look at the difference. In Ohio, the ghost affected water quality maybe. It appeared as light. But it didn't kill the cows. It didn't push Carl. It acted as a pointer. It manipulated the environment to reveal a truth, but it didn't exert violent kinetic force on a living person.
So you're drawing a line between influence and attack.
Yes. Most so-called physical poltergeist activity is, small objects moving, temperatures dropping. Strangulation requires about 11 pounds of constant pressure on the trachea. That is a massive amount of directed energy. The Carl Logis ghost just didn't show that kind of power. It just stood there.
Okay, so if ghosts historically are more like holograms and hitmen, that supports your mind over matter theory for Anton. But you mentioned expectations earlier, the idea that Anton created the rope because he knew the story.
Right, and for that, we have to look at the Samuel Hughes case. Wales, 1907. This is the perfect example of how the brain edits reality.
This one is just tragic. Samuel Hughes is a salt merchant. He's on a train, misses his stop, has to walk home in the dark. He never makes it. He falls off a bridge and dies.
But his wife, Bess, she doesn't know that yet. She's at home, it's 3 a.m, and she hears him come home. She opens the door and sees Samuel standing right there on the porch.
And she describes him so vividly, wearing his big black silk hat and his long cloak. He just stares at her and then vanishes.
It's a crisis apparition. A vision seen at the moment of a loved one's death. But here is the forensic detail that matters. When the police found Samuel's body in the ravine, he wasn't wearing his hat. The hat was found miles away. He'd lost it earlier that night.
So Bess saw him wearing the hat, even though the real Samuel wasn't.
Because in her mind, Samuel always meant hat. Her brain projected the image it expected to see, not the reality that actually existed. It filled in the blanks.
I see the connection you're making. Bess expected a hat, so she saw a hat. Anton expected a rope, so he felt a rope.
Precisely. If Bess's mind could project a physical object, a silk hat, into her vision so clearly she thought it was real, is it that much of a leap to think Anton's mind projected the sensation of a rope so intensely that his own body reacted to it?
But Bess didn't have a hat-shaped bruise on her forehead. Anton had a physical mark on his neck. We keep coming back to that wound. I feel like we're dancing around the scariest possibility here.
Which is what?
That all the expert analysis is wrong. That we're trying so hard to cram this into psychogenic purpura or crisis apparition because the alternative is just terrifying. What if the monk isn't a crisis apparition? What if it's something else?
You're suggesting a poltergeist with actual mass and intent?
I'm suggesting that maybe we don't know everything about physics. In the Logis case, the ghost could affect water. If an entity can change the chemical properties of a well, why can't it compress a windpipe?
It's a valid hypothesis, scientifically speaking, even if we can't test it. If you accept the premise that a spirit can manipulate matter at all, even just knocking on a wall, then strangulation is just a matter of scale. It's just more force.
And don't forget the door. His friends had to smash it down. If Anton was just having a heart attack while hallucinating, why didn't he unlock the door to try and get out?
Fear paralysis. Or maybe he was already dead before he even hit the floor.
Or he was being held down.
That is the nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
When we synthesize these 3 cases, we have a spectrum. Samuel Hughes shows the mind's ability to project false details.
Right.
Carl Logis shows a spirit's ability to interact with the environment to solve a crime. And Anton Holberg, he sits in the dark space right between them.
It's like his case combines the worst of both worlds. The psychological terror of the Hughes case, the expectation of the rope, and the physical intrusion of the Logis case.
And that is what makes it so deeply unsettling. If it was his mind, it means we carry the capacity for our own destruction inside us, triggered by just a story. If it was the monk, it means the walls between our world and the next are much thinner and more fragile than we want to believe.
So we're left with 2 verdicts. Verdict A, Anton Holberg died from a nocebo effect on steroids. His belief in the legend hijacked his nervous system, stopped his heart, and his body threw a catastrophic biological tantrum that perfectly mimicked strangulation.
That is the rational explanation, even if it relies on extremely rare medical phenomena.
Verdict B. He accepted a dare he shouldn't have. He walked into a room occupied by something hostile. And that something used the exact weapon the legend predicted it would.
And left no trace, because it didn't need a physical rope to apply that force.
So I have to ask you, listening to this, which is scarier, the idea that a ghost can actually kill you in a locked room, or the idea that your own brain can get so terrified it decides to just execute you on the spot.
Personally, I think I'd take the ghost. At least you can try to run from a haunted house. You can't run from your own limbic system.
That is a very disturbing thought to end on. If Anton died of fright, where did that mark come from? Is it possible that pure fear can leave a physical scar? Or was there something else in that room with him, watching him turn the key?
I think I'll be sleeping with the lights on tonight.
Same here. And to everyone listening, maybe check your locks. But, don't check them too obsessively. You don't want to start imagining things.
Indeed. Stay safe.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.